Believe or not, we currently live in the golden age of discharge right now, 2022. A lot of people spend time, spend energy, lose time, and lose energy working for this thing called money. Now, money is just any accepted medium of exchange for value. Lawful money is another thing, legal tender is another thing. We've went over that in the past. But a lot of people work daily and sacrifices a lot daily. Their health, their mind, their ability to evolve past one stage or the other because they work for money. Either because they've somehow been compelled to think that's the only way to earn money, or they themselves choose to accept that. And so they work day in and day out for money. You have to work hard to earn anything. That's a fact. But despite a lot of people working hard to earn these monies, none of them stop for a moment to ask themselves, maybe I should learn about this thing that I'm working so hard for, so that I can make this money and make more money for me. A lot of people's presumption that using money to make more money is buying low, selling high. That is true at some degree. But when you really understand the monetary system and the nature of money, especially in today's world, you would comprehend that there's a reason why they call it currency. It always wants to flow. And these banks out here actually want to give you money. They want to give you money because these money, it doesn't benefit them. And it's written all inside of National Currency Act. This thing called taxation that a lot of people run away from. If you comprehend the monetary system, you would comprehend why tax exists. Tax and discharge are twins. Now, just as two twins can come out looking differently or express themselves differently within personality or just the way they physically look, so is discharge and tax, despite them being twins. But the truth remains that those same twins were sparked from the same cell. The source code for those two twins, discharge and tax, is exact same thing. Their outward appearance and their outward motion might be different nonetheless. When you comprehend monetary system, you will see that discharge and tax are one and the same, expressing itself in a different form. And to be able to discharge successfully, you must know this. This thing called taxation without representation. A lot of people are loosely familiar with it, with the whole quote founding fathers. When you ask them what is taxation without representation, they will tell you it's because someone is taking money from you to a point where they basically make you go poor and their pockets get big and you get small. But in truth, what they've just told you is just taxation. There's this qualifying term in front of it called without representation. What is taxation without representation according to Investopedia? The phrase taxation without representation describes a populace that is required to pay taxes to a government authority. The phrase taxation without representation describes a populace, meaning a specific type of people within any given area, a specific population. It doesn't use a blanket term as in everyone. It distinguishes it within the first sentence that only certain people qualify for taxation. The phrase Taxation without representation describes a populace, meaning the group of people. This word and a group of people, same thing. The phrase taxation without representation describes a populace that is required to pay taxes to a government authority without having any say in that government's policies. So the without representation aspect of it is that the pocket is being dug into and there's no recourse. The pocket is being dug into. And there's no ability to say, okay, maybe these things that you are using to enforce these taxation, maybe it ought to go this way. That way it benefits the public at large. And the only way or reason why you would want any specific amount taken out of your earning to put it into any type of pool is to benefit the public at large. The only way you would agree for something to be taken out of your pocket into someone else's hands is because, well, it's supposed to benefit everyone and everyone else does it. Taxation is supposed to be the original form of social, whereby everyone puts a specific amount here, a specific amount into the pot, and then that amount is taken out to benefit everyone else one way or the other. So the issue is not taxation. The issue is people's understanding of what taxation is and the reason why it exists. The thing is, you don't necessarily have to belong to a specific body politic for you to qualify for taxation. If you're interfacing with them in any way, shape, or form, then you effectively risk the chances of qualifying for certain types of taxation. But then guess what? If you really comprehend taxation, then you will realize that there are actually certain things implemented into it to assist you. Remember, the government are the people, and your respective state constitutions let you know that. And the fine print of the federal level constitution also lets you know that. Now, are they private stakeholders who use closed corporations to do other things? Yes, they exist. But nonetheless, the so-called system has already been set up in such a perfect way that all you have to do is just learn about it. A lot of us are aware that there's a skewed scale, an unbalanced and unfair aspect to everyday life where the everyday man suffers for it. But when it comes to fairness or unfairness, the relevance is information. Whoever wields the most information suffers the least. But then even information alone is not sufficient. Since relevance is the information when it comes to fairness or not, that means the information itself has to be relevant to the circumstance you're dealing with. Many hoard information, but all those information are irrelevant to what they're dealing with. Many people go on about discharge, but they never speak of taxation at the same time. It is mind-blowing to think anyone can speak about discharge and not mention taxation or how taxes work. You ought to know about it. Isn't that the reason why the majority of people want to run away from it? Is that not the same thing you intend to do? Is that not the same thing that the so-called founding fathers ran away from the British Moors in Asia Major? And unbeknownst to you, when you say you intend to discharge, That is the exact same thing you are trying to do. You are trying to remove yourself from the system of taxation. The system you intend to discharge any given obligation from is that of taxation. There are IRS manuals that makes it very clear that everything is taxed. There are financial commissions from the 1900s and recent ones during the era of Trump being the president and all that. They released another commission report regarding taxation, and they lay it out to you clearly. When those so-called founding fathers were trying to leave one part of the world and try to engage in commerce here, and they were fronted some credit, and that credit and evidence of that front of credit to do commerce is in Article 6, Clause 1 of the United States Constitution. That should let you know that a discharge system has long existed before House Joint Resolution 192. If these so-called founding fathers were speaking about taxation without representation, and somehow they were able to create colonies here, should that not start to bring out a light bulb that a discharge system has existed before 1933, House Joint Resolution 192? If your reliance upon what makes discharge works is an inception of House Joint Resolution 192, then clearly you are missing the whole point of why you can discharge. You're discharging because you're interfacing with the so-called United States, who intends to put some obligation on you, right? Well, the documents that create this United States stipulates a lot of things about discharge in and of itself. And no, we're not speaking of gold and silver. That is the tender of payment of their debt, and that is divine monies. So you should hold it as asset so that you can use it to make you more money. But when they subrogate upon you, there are terms and conditions that were put in place. But when it comes to discharge and the way the system of discharge functions, how it's introduced to a lot of people, that's not what's going on. See, gold and silver was their tender of payment to satisfy their debt, because the people that they owe, that's the currency that they deal in. But them, that's not the currency, aka them as in United States. That's not the currency they deal in. Now, privately, do they deal in that? Sure they do. This is the reason why holding gold or silver actually makes you a sovereign in comparison to the United States, because it removes presumption of subrogation of you under them, and it puts you on a superior status that their creditor was, and the requirements that puts them in a debtor. Do you really see why and how gold and silver is what determines sovereignty? All these people going on about they're a sovereign so and so, without really comprehending that what makes you a sovereign, the current system that we're in, is gold and silver. He who holds the gold and silver is the sovereign. So much so that when you begin to do business on a certain level, they would only deal with gold and silver, nothing more. So much so that when you begin to hold natural resources like land and assets of things that make you residual income, the collateral is not the land anymore. It is now the gold and silver that you hold. Because naturally speaking, those lands can have gold and silver, and if you hold gold and silver, you can interrelate it with that land as its collateral, as though it's a natural resource that came directly from that land. But that's another game on another level. But do you see the importance of gold and silver and why you should hold it? Because it is their obligation that they need, and your mere possession of it puts you at a certain status. But when it comes to public deficit and public debt, Nope. A separate system on the other side of the ledger is created for that. See that Article 6 where the debts, all contract and debt engagement before the creation of the United States will be as valid against the United States as it was under the Confederation, that verbiage? Do you know what the other terms and conditions are? You know, when people get credit card debt, they list to you the annual percentage rate where you will send it to, the increments in which you're to satisfy it, all that. All that is not in the face of those constitutions. You know that, right? Terms and conditions of how they are to pay their debt. The rest of the terms and conditions, like you see all those long lists of things you read with mortgages and credit card debt and all that, any given contract, is in other bodies of treaties. I mean, just think about it. Someone says you owe them something. They're going to tell you, all right, against it accrues this amount of interest or it doesn't, and this is where and who you're going to be paying it to. The Constitution don't say all that. The Constitution just says you guys are going to satisfy us. The amount that we fronted you is still valid, even though you're just reorganizing based on bankruptcy that you're now calling the United States. And another thing that does not occur to people is that the United States Constitution, that 1791, is completely different from the one that's created with the Act of District of Washington, Columbia, 1871. That one in 1871, compared to the one completely ratified in 1791, two different United States. And guess what? Both United States are still valid and active. When people going about United States is bankrupt, it's expired, man, all that is trash. Absolute trash. And yeah, it might upset some people because they've held on to that concept so much, so dearly. But you're holding on to something that's not really going to assist you in any way. You're seeking for a real solution and remedy, right? Accept the truth then. Because in fact, the truth will set you free. Is some form of freedom not what you seek when you attempt to discharge? Keep in mind, if you are a citizen of the United States, you cannot have gold and silver. Therefore, you cannot discharge using gold and silver. You cannot satisfy any presumption of obligation with gold and silver if they subrogate you. So that should automatically tell you the capacity you ought to come in when you're discharging. Because clearly anyone with some common sense would not just hand their gold and silver to anyone else over some debt that's speculative and is constantly being printed every day, called the Federal Reserve notes. Think of the intricacies before you start to do things, and it will become very clear to you. Most of what you need, you already know. You just have to take the relevant ones and plant that seed in a proper place, and it will sprout and give you the end result that you need. For discharge to work, you have to know how taxation works. For discharge to work, you have to know how to implement it into the system. Because this protest called without taxation and without representation has been fixed. Within the tax codes themselves. Just a little food for thought for you. Because when you really begin to understand these things, comprehend these things, you will realize that these tax codes are meant to benefit private parties. When you fill out 1096, all that, those are tax forms. I hope people realize that. All those IRS forms, All of those are tax forms. So why not understand what you're really doing beyond merely getting someone to instruct you to fill out a form and hoping it just somehow works? Just a little food for thought. But there's also an anomaly that occurs when clarity is created after some perspective has been held on to so tight. There's an old verbiage. In order for you to receive something, you first have to let go of what you have. That verbiage does not make reference to you already having something good. The predominant perception behind that verbiage is that what you have on you, what you currently have in your mind, in this case, that you've held on to, it's not as much of a benefit to you as you think it is. It's way less than half of what you think you need to know to accomplish what your desired intent is. But then again, it's also a form of perfection, a perfected mechanism, whereby not everyone is meant to access certain things. Therefore, people would only interpret information from the manner that they would strictly like to hear it from, rather than totality of how it works. So that's also a good thing. Another thing one ought to put into consideration is misinformation has been rampant for so long. Conditioning has been rampant for so long. People presume they can hear about something for a moment and quickly come to a conclusion as to whether it's right or wrong. Dismiss it or accept it. I say don't dismiss or accept what's being introduced to you here, or anything else. But more so, take your time and do some self-reflection on what you're hearing. And cross-reference the information. Read the things that are being read and shown here. And then do some more reflection on that. Remove how you feel about it. Remove what someone else has hammered into your mind. Remove the hype train. Remove all that unnecessary, wasteful zeal. Focus on the substance of it. Because only then will you ever begin to get this remedy that everyone chases after. Someone has to first reveal to you that maybe what you know is not quite right. And even if there's some righteousness to it, then it's definitely not complete. In a perfect world, we don't even have to have these type of rudimentary basic conversations. The majority of people that go on as though they know what discharge is and go on about they want to use this form, that form, they don't know these rudimentary stuff. They don't. That is alarming. That is an issue. Remember, no one owes you time. No one owes you energy. And if you intend to obtain time and energy from someone else, it has to be worth it. It has to be worth it. A state of mind otherwise is exactly what causes the same condition that everyone is suffering from in today's world. A state of mind that's contrary to the fact that no one owes you anything, time, energy, and that if you do want to obtain it, it has to be worth it. The opposite of that state of mind that was perpetuated by people is the reason why people in today's world suffer. People don't put value in information or truth. People don't put value into things that's going to make their lives better. People seek some form of entitlement. You owe me something, so you have to give it to me. Isn't that what these people that you're trying to discharge is doing to you? Stop for a moment. Do some self-reflection as to where you're coming from so that you know where you're going. Don't get lost in the sauce. You're the exception. Take care. Best of luck. Hey, I'm inviting you to come and join my Patreon if you haven't. Over there we speak about things we don't talk about on YouTube. We speak about privacy, we speak about trademarks, the USPS, and how they use trademark products to basically subrogate you. We speak about things of spiritual nature. We speak about UCC related matters. We speak of how to sue people, audits. We speak of property rights, copyrights. We speak about child support, loans, commerce. We speak about the intricacies of the different types of corporation and how they use it against you. We go over the laws and the verbiage of copyrights. We go over how to create copyrights and trademarks, how to sue people, the intricacies of actual fraud, corporate veil, how it's used against you, how your trust cannot be pierced, the private side of court beyond the commerce. We speak of how to protect your asset and how to enforce it against people. We speak about discharge, different types of discharge according to satisfaction, how to go after their oath of bond, how to get their oath of bond, especially on a federal level. We speak of how to create private profiles. We speak of many things regarding privacy and the Fourth Amendment, how to sue them, the different types of suits and the relief, how to establish probable cause. We speak about copyleft and how it's in fact full faith and credit. We speak about the common laws, public act, session laws. We speak of GSA bonds, how to fill them out, how to put your vehicle in trust, how to not qualify for taxation, and many good study tools, and many more to come in the future.